Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Guardian and looked out at empty space. Stars dotted the black void like tiny diamonds, but there was nothing else to see. No other ships, no planets, no signs of life. Just the cold emptiness that had been his view for the past 3 years. The Guardian was old. 50 years old to be exact. Her hull was thick and gray, built like a fortress that could fly through space. She was not pretty like the new ships with their sleek designs and shining armor. The Guardian looked like what she was, a tough old warship that had seen better days. Jake walked across the bridge, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The bridge was large and spacious, nothing like the cramped command centers on modern ships. Everything was built big on the Guardian. Big corridors, big rooms, big engines, big guns. The people who made her believed that bigger was better, and they built her to last forever. Captain, called Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and bright eyes that still held hope. We got the daily patrol orders from command. Jake nodded and walked over to her station. Amy was good at her job, even if she was stuck on the Guardian like everyone else. The fleet sent their problem officers here, the ones who made mistakes or asked too many questions. Amy had done both. "Let me guess," Jake said. "Patrol Sector 7, check for smugglers, report anything unusual." "That's right, sir, same as always." Jake smiled, but it was not happy. The same orders every day for 3 years. Patrol the empty space between star systems. Look for ships that never came. Watch for enemies that never showed up. It was boring work that the fleet gave to ships they wanted to forget about. The Guardian was that kind of ship now. Too old to fight with the main fleet, too tough to scrap, too expensive to rebuild. So they stuck her out here in the middle of nowhere with a crew of misfits and told them to stay out of the way. "Amy, send a message back to command. Tell them, we received the orders and we're starting patrol." "Yes, sir." Jake walked to the center of the bridge where his captain's chair waited. It was big and comfortable, made of real leather that had worn soft over the years. He sat down and pressed a button on the arm of the chair. "All hands, this is the captain. We're starting our daily patrol. All departments report status." One by one, his department heads checked in. Chief Engineer Ben Carter was first. Ben was 45 years old and had been working on starships since he was 18. He knew the Guardian better than anyone. "Engineering here, Captain. Fusion reactors are running at 80%. Not bad for 50-year-old equipment. Main engines are good to go. We got a small leak in coolant line 3, but I can fix that while we're flying." "Thanks, Ben." "Weapons?" Lieutenant Lisa Gray answered next. She was 30 and had served on 3 different ships before the Guardian. "Weapon systems are online, Captain. Main guns are ready, point defense is working, missiles are loaded. We got enough firepower to handle anything we might run into out here." Jake almost laughed. Out here, they never ran into anything more dangerous than space rocks and lost cargo containers. The Guardian's massive weapons had not fired a shot in anger for over 10 years. "Medical bay reporting," came the voice of Dr. Kelly Stone. She was the ship's doctor and the only woman on board besides Amy and Lisa. "All medical systems are working. I got enough supplies to handle any problems." "Security here," said Sergeant Tony Lopez. He was in charge of the Guardian's small security team. "All security stations are manned and ready, Captain." Jake nodded. His crew was small for such a big ship. The Guardian was built to carry 800 people, but they only had 120. The rest of the ship was empty, whole sections, sealed off to save power and air. "Okay, people, let's take her out. Amy, plot a course for Sector 7. Ben, give me half power on the main engines." The Guardian began to move. She was not fast like the new ships, where a modern cruiser could zip through space like a racing car. The Guardian moved like a big truck carrying a heavy load. But she moved steady and sure, and she never broke down. Jake watched the stars slowly shift as they changed direction. He had been captain of the Guardian for 5 years now, ever since his last ship was destroyed in a pirate attack. The fleet said it was his fault, that he should have been more careful. They were probably right, but it still hurt. The Guardian was supposed to be punishment duty. A dead-end job for a captain who had made mistakes. But Jake had grown to love the old ship. She was honest in a way that new ships were not. When something broke, you could fix it. When she got hit, she stayed together. She was built by people who knew how to make things that lasted. "Captain," Amy said, "I'm picking up some strange readings on long-range sensors." Jake looked up. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures, sir. Very faint. Could be ships, but they're too far away to be sure." Jake frowned. Ships rarely came through this part of space. There was nothing here worth visiting. "Can you get a better reading?" Amy worked at her station, pressing buttons and adjusting dials. "I'm trying, sir, but whatever it is, it's still very far away. Maybe at the edge of the star system. Keep watching it. Let me know if it gets closer." Jake was not worried. Probably just a merchant ship taking a shortcut, or maybe a research vessel studying the outer planets. Still, it was the first interesting thing that had happened in months, hours, passed as the Guardian continued her patrol. They checked empty coordinates, scanned dead space, and found nothing as usual. Jake was reading reports in his ready room when Amy's voice came over the communication system. "Captain to the bridge. The energy readings are getting stronger." Jake put down his reports and walked quickly to the bridge. Amy was bent over her sensor station, studying the displays with a worried look on her face. "What do you see?" Jake asked. "The signatures are definitely getting closer, sir, and there are more of them now. A lot more." Jake looked at the sensor display. Dozens of small dots were moving slowly across the screen, all heading toward the inner system, toward the colonies, toward Earth's people. "How many ships are we talking about?" Amy checked her readings again. "I count at least 50 contacts. Sir, maybe more. They're still too far away to get exact numbers." Jake felt something cold in his stomach. 50 ships was a fleet, not a merchant convoy, and they were coming from outside the system, from the direction of alien space. "Amy, send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we have unknown contacts approaching the system. Send them all our sensor data." "Yes, sir. Sending now." Jake sat in his captain's chair and stared at the display. The Guardian was alone out here, 50 light minutes from the nearest friendly ship. If those contacts were hostile, there was nothing he could do to stop them. But he could watch them. He could gather information and send it back to the fleet. That was his job, even if it might be the last thing he ever did. The Guardian continued her patrol, no longer looking for smugglers or space debris. Now she was watching an approaching fleet that might bring war to humanity's doorstep. And Jake Morrison, captain of the ship everyone had forgotten, was the only one standing in their way. 3 days passed and the unknown contacts kept getting closer. Captain Jake Morrison had not slept much during those 3 days. Every few hours he came to the bridge to check the sensors and talk to his crew. The dots on the screen were now clear enough to count. 212 ships, the largest alien fleet that humans had ever seen. Amy Foster worked at her communication station, trying to intercept any signals from the approaching fleet. Her face was pale and tired, but her hands were steady as she adjusted the receivers and filters. She had been working almost non-stop since the first contact. "Captain," Amy said, "I'm getting something. The aliens are talking to each other." Jake walked over to her station. "Can you understand what they're saying?" "Some of it, sir. The computer is translating bits and pieces. They call themselves the hegemony of Vrak. They're talking about conquest and claiming new territory." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was not a peaceful contact or a diplomatic mission. This was an invasion force, and they were heading straight for the human colonies in the inner system. "Keep listening, Amy. Try to learn everything you can about their plans." Jake pressed the button on his chair to call Chief Engineer Ben Carter. "Ben, I need you to push the engines harder. We might need to move fast." Ben's voice came through the speaker with his usual grumpy tone. "Captain, these old engines are already working pretty hard. I can give you maybe 10% more power, but I can't promise how long they'll hold together. Do what you can, Ben. We might be in for a rough time." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They all knew what was coming. A fleet of over 200 alien warships against the scattered human defense forces. The math was not good. The Guardian's communication system buzzed with an incoming message. It was Admiral Kate Sullivan, the commander of the Earth Defense Fleet. Her face appeared on the main screen, and Jake could see the worry in her eyes. "Jake, we received your reports about the alien fleet. How certain are you about the numbers?" "Very certain, Admiral. We count 212 ships, all military vessels. They're moving in formation toward the inner system." Admiral Sullivan nodded. "We're pulling back all our ships to defend Kepler Prime. The colony has 3 million people we need to protect." Jake understood. Kepler Prime was the most important human settlement in this system. If it fell, millions of people would die or become slaves to the aliens. "What are your orders for the Guardian, Admiral?" "Stay where you are, Jake. Keep watching the alien fleet and send us updates on their movements. But do not, under any circumstances, engage them. Your job is to observe and report." Jake wanted to argue. The Guardian was a warship built for fighting. But he knew the Admiral was right. One old battlecruiser against 200 alien ships would not last 5 minutes. "Understood, Admiral. We'll keep watching." The Admiral's face disappeared from the screen, and Jake was alone with his thoughts. The Guardian would stay here at the edge of the system while the real fleet fell back to defend the colonies. They would watch the aliens pass by like ghosts in the night. Amy looked up from her station with excitement in her voice. "Captain, I'm getting more of their communications. The computer is learning their language fast." "What are they saying?" "They're planning their attack, sir. The alien commander is called War Commander Thex. He's on a big ship called the World Breaker. They plan to sweep through the outer system first, destroying any human ships they find. Then they'll attack Kepler Prime with their full fleet." Jake studied the tactical display. The alien fleet was spread out in a long line with fast ships in front and the bigger warships following behind. It was a good formation for sweeping through space and destroying everything in their path. "How long until they reach us?" Jake asked. Amy checked her calculations. "The first ships will be here in about 2 hours, sir. The main fleet will arrive maybe an hour after that." 2 hours. Jake looked around the bridge again. His crew was trying to look brave, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They were going to be sitting in space watching an alien armada pass right by them, hoping the aliens would not notice one old human warship. Lieutenant Lisa Gray spoke up from the weapons station. "Captain, request permission to charge the main guns." Jake thought about it. Charging the weapons would make the Guardian easier to detect, but it would also mean they were ready if something went wrong. "Permission granted, Lisa. Charge all weapons, but keep them powered down. I don't want to light up their sensors unless we have to." "Yes, sir." Jake walked to his ready room and called up the Guardian's technical files on his computer. He studied the ship's specifications, her armor thickness, her weapon ranges, her shield strength. The Guardian was tough, but she was also old. Her weapons were powerful but slow to aim. Her armor was thick, but her engines were not fast enough to run away from trouble. The ship had been built 50 years ago when human engineers believed in making things strong and reliable. New ships were faster and had better computers, but they were also more fragile. If a new ship took serious damage, it usually died quickly. The Guardian was built to take punishment and keep fighting. Jake's door chimed and Amy walked in. She looked nervous and excited at the same time. "Captain, I intercepted more alien communications. War Commander Thex was talking to his ship commanders about human defenses." "What did he say?" "He said humans are weak and primitive. He thinks our ships are no match for Vrak technology. He's so confident that he's only sending 30 ships to sweep the outer system. The rest of his fleet will wait and then attack Kepler Prime all at once." Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. 30 ships, still enough to destroy us 10 times over. "There's something else, sir. The aliens don't know about the Guardian. They scanned the system from far away, but they didn't detect us. We're too far from the shipping lanes and our power signature is too low." That was interesting. The Guardian was running quietly, using just enough power for basic systems. To alien sensors, she might look like space junk or a dead ship drifting in the void. Jake went back to the bridge and sat in his captain's chair. The alien fleet was getting closer, and soon they would have to make a choice. Follow orders and stay hidden or do something that might help the colonies. Amy, have you been able to learn anything about alien ship designs? A little, sir. Their ships are fast and have powerful weapons, but they seem to have thin armor. They rely on speed and shields for protection. Jake nodded. That made sense. Most advanced races built ships that way, fast and deadly, but fragile. The Guardian was the opposite, slow and tough, built like a flying fortress. Captain, Ben. Carter's voice came over the speaker from engineering. I've been thinking about those alien ships. If they're built for speed, they probably don't have much armor. Our old guns might be able to hurt them more than they expect. Thanks for the input, Ben. Jake looked at the tactical display one more time. The first alien ships would arrive in 90 minutes. 30 fast attack ships with orders to destroy any human vessels they found. The Guardian sat right in their path like a roadblock. Admiral Sullivan had ordered him to observe and not engage. But Jake was starting to think that following orders might not be the right thing to do. Sometimes a captain had to make hard choices, even if it meant disobeying direct orders. The alien ships kept coming, and Jake Morrison prepared to make the most important decision of his life. War Commander Thex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the World Breaker, and watched the tactical display with satisfaction. His advance fleet of 30 ships was moving through the outer system like a knife through soft flesh. No human resistance, no defensive positions, nothing but empty space and silence. The humans were even weaker than he had expected. Thex was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms that moved independently as he worked the control panels around. His command chair. His people, the Vrak, had conquered 17 star systems in the past 50 years. They were experts at warfare and had never lost a major battle. War Commander, said his tactical officer, we are detecting one human vessel in our path. It appears to be alone. Thex looked at the display with mild interest. A single dot showed the location of the human ship, sitting motionless in space like a piece of floating debris. Ship type and armament? Unknown, sir. It appears to be very old. Primitive design? Probably a cargo vessel or mining ship. Thex waved one of his arms dismissively. Ignore it. We have more important targets to destroy. But as his fleet moved closer, the human ship suddenly came to life. Its engines lit up and it began moving directly into the path of the Vrak advance fleet. Then something unexpected happened. Weapon systems powered up, and the ship's communication array began broadcasting. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Starship Guardian. You are entering human space without permission. Turn around and leave, or we will be forced to take action. Thex stared at the display in amazement. One human ship was challenging his entire fleet. It was either the bravest thing he had ever seen or the most foolish. Sir, his tactical officer said, the human ship is blocking our route to the inner system. One ship, Thex said slowly. One ancient human ship thinks it can stop 30 Vrak warships. On the Guardian's bridge, Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet slow down and change formation. 3 of their ships were moving toward him, probably to brush aside this annoying obstacle. Captain, Amy Foster said from her station, I'm picking up alien communications. They're laughing at us. Let them laugh, Jake replied. Lisa, are the main guns ready? Lieutenant Lisa Gray nodded from the weapons station. All main guns charged and ready, sir. Point defense systems online. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Jake looked around his bridge one more time. His crew was scared but determined. They knew this was probably their last fight, but they were going to make it count. Ben, Jake called to engineering, I need everything you can give me. Full power, to weapons and shields. You got it, Captain. These old reactors might not look like much, but they can push out more power than anything built today. The 3 Vrak ships approached in a standard attack formation. They were sleek and beautiful, like deadly silver fish swimming through space. Their weapons were already charging, and Jake could see energy building up in their gun ports. Incoming. Fire, Lisa announced. The alien ships opened up with everything they had. Beams of purple energy and clusters of missiles streaked toward the Guardian. Jake gripped his chair as the weapon struck his ship. The bridge shook and lights flickered. But the Guardian held together. Her thick armor plating absorbed most of the energy weapons, and her point defense guns shot down the incoming missiles. Damage reports came in from around the ship, but nothing critical was hit. "Return fire," Jake ordered. The Guardian's main gun spoke with voices of thunder. 6 massive rail cannons fired solid projectiles at incredible speed. The first frac ship tried to dodge, but the Guardian's targeting computer had been tracking it for several minutes. The projectiles punched through the alien ship's shields like they were made of paper. The Vrak frigate exploded in a ball of white fire. On the Worldbreaker, War Commander Thex watched in shock as one of his ships died. The human vessel had destroyed a modern Vrak warship with a single salvo from primitive kinetic weapons. "How is that possible?" he demanded. "Sir, our ships are built for speed and maneuverability. Our armor is light to save weight. Those human projectiles hit with tremendous force." Thex studied the tactical display more carefully. The human ship was old and slow, but it was also incredibly tough. His weapons had barely scratched its armor, while its primitive guns had destroyed one of his ships completely. "Send 5 more ships, destroy that human vessel immediately." The remaining 2 Vrak ships in the first attack group continued their assault on the Guardian. But now they were more careful, trying to stay at long range where their energy weapons would be more effective. Jake Morrison was ready for them. "Lisa, target the ship on the left. Ben, give me emergency power to the forward shields." The Guardian turned slowly to face her attackers. She was not fast, but she was steady, and her guns were incredibly accurate. Another salvo of rail cannon fire reached out across space and caught the second Vrak ship as it tried to change course. The alien ship took 3 hits in the engine section and went spinning out of control. It did not explode like the first one, but it was clearly out of the fight. 2 down, Jake said quietly. The third alien ship had learned from watching its companions die. It stayed far away and used long-range missiles, hoping to wear down the Guardian's defenses over time. But the old human warship had been built for exactly this kind of fight. "Point defense batteries engaging," Lisa reported. "Shooting down incoming missiles." The Guardian's smaller guns tracked and destroyed the alien missiles one by one. Her defensive systems had been designed 50 years ago to handle massive missile attacks from human separatist forces. Stopping a few dozen alien missiles was not difficult. But now more Vrak ships were approaching. War Commander Thex had sent 5 additional vessels to deal with the troublesome human ship. Jake could see them on his sensors, moving fast and spreading out to attack from multiple directions. "Captain," Amy said, "I'm detecting a lot of alien communications. They're angry and confused. They can't understand how we're still alive." Jake smiled grimly. The aliens had probably never fought anything like the Guardian before. Their ships were built for quick, decisive battles against enemies who would break under the first serious attack. The Guardian was built to absorb punishment and keep fighting no matter what happened to her. "Ben, how are we doing on power?" "Reactors are running hot but stable, Captain. The old girl's got plenty of fight left in her." The 5 new Vrak ships arrived and immediately spread out in a complex attack pattern. They had learned that the Guardian's guns were deadly accurate, so they were trying to confuse her targeting systems by moving unpredictably. "Lisa, pick your targets carefully. We need to make every shot count." "Yes, sir, targeting the lead ship." The Guardian fired again, but this time the aliens were ready. The lead Vrak ship dodged at the last second, and the rail cannon projectiles missed by a few hundred meters. The aliens had finally learned to respect the old human warship's weapons. But Jake Morrison had been fighting battles in space for 20 years, and he had a few tricks of his own. Instead of trying to hit the fast-moving alien ships directly, he ordered Lisa to fire at the space where they would be, not where they were. "Predictive fire pattern, Lisa. Lead your targets." The Guardian's next salvo caught 2 alien ships as they maneuvered to avoid the expected impact points. Both ships took critical damage and fell out of formation, leaving only 3 attackers still in the fight. War Commander Thex watched the battle with growing concern. He had sent 8 ships to destroy 1 old human vessel, and that vessel had already destroyed or crippled 6 of them. This was not going according to plan. The battle had been going on for 2 hours and the Guardian was still fighting. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display as more Vrak ships moved toward his position. His uniform was torn and dirty, and there was blood on his forehead from when a console had exploded nearby. But he was still alive, and his ship was still fighting. "Damage report," Jake called out. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, reported Sergeant Tony Lopez from Damage Control. We lost main power to sections B and C, but backup systems are working. Forward armor is down to 60% thickness, but it's still holding." Jake nodded. The Guardian was hurt, but she was far from dead. Her thick armor and redundant systems were keeping her alive against impossible odds. "Captain," Amy Foster called from her communication station, "I'm picking up transmissions from Admiral Sullivan's fleet. They're asking for a status report. Tell them we're still here and still fighting. Send them all our battle data and sensor readings." Jake had been thinking about this battle while he fought it. The Guardian was not just fighting for her own survival. She was gathering information about alien weapons and tactics, information that the main human fleet would need when they faced the Vrak Armada. Every shot the aliens fired at the Guardian, every maneuver they made, every tactical decision they chose was being recorded and transmitted back to Admiral Sullivan. The Guardian was serving as humanity's eyes and ears, learning how to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. "Ben," Jake called to engineering, "how are those reactors holding up?" Chief Engineer Ben Carter's voice came back over the intercom, sounding tired but determined. "Captain, I got these old fusion reactors running at 120% of rated power. The safety systems keep trying to shut us down, but I keep telling them to shut up and keep working." Jake almost smiled. Ben Carter was a master engineer who understood the Guardian better than anyone. He knew exactly how far he could push the old systems before they broke down completely. "The thing is, Captain," Ben continued, "these reactors were built with a lot of extra capacity. The designers knew that ships like the Guardian would have to fight alone sometimes, so they built in surge power that modern ships don't have. That was the Guardian's secret. While new ships were built to exact specifications with little room for extra capacity, the Guardian had been overbuilt in every way. Her reactors could produce more power than her official rating suggested. Her weapons could fire faster than the manuals claimed. Her armor was thicker than it needed to be. She had been built by engineers who believed that when everything went wrong, having too much was better than having too little." "Lisa," Jake called to his weapons officer, "what's our ammunition status?" "Lieutenant," Lisa Gray checked her displays. "We're down to 40% on main gun ammunition, Captain, but we still have plenty of point defense rounds in all our missiles." Jake studied the tactical situation. 15 Vrak ships were now engaged with the Guardian, trying to destroy her through concentrated fire. But instead of overwhelming her, quickly they were being drawn into exactly the kind of close-range brawling match that the Guardian had been designed for. War Commander Thex was making a mistake, and Jake intended to make him pay for it. "Amy, are you still intercepting alien communications?" "Yes, sir. War Commander Thex is getting angry. He's demanding that his ships destroy us immediately. He's worried that we're delaying his attack on the colonies." That was exactly what Jake wanted to hear. Every minute the Guardian stayed alive was another minute for Admiral Sullivan to prepare her defenses. Every Vrak ship committed to destroying the Guardian was one less ship available for the assault on Kepler Prime. "Captain," Amy continued, "there's something else. The aliens are confused about our ship. They keep calling us primitive, but they can't understand why we won't die." Jake walked over to Amy's station and looked at the communications data she had collected. The Vrak had never fought anything like the Guardian before. Their experience was with enemies who used the same tactical approaches they did, fast ships, with light armor that relied on speed and advanced technology. The Guardian was something completely different. She was a throwback to an earlier era of ship design, when engineers built warships like fortresses and expected them to slug it out at close range, until one side or the other was completely destroyed. "Lisa, I want you to target their command ship, the one that's been hanging back and coordinating their attacks." "Yes, sir. I see it. Range is long, but I think I can hit it." Jake had been studying the Vrak formation for the past hour. Most of their ships were aggressive fighters that liked to get close and use their superior speed. But one ship had been staying at long range, sending orders to the others. That ship was probably commanded by someone important. "Take your time, Lisa. Make it count." The Guardian's main guns turned slowly toward the distant Vrak command ship. The alien vessel was trying to stay out of range, but the Guardian's old-fashioned rail cannons had longer reach than most modern weapons. Lisa waited for the perfect moment when the alien ship's evasive maneuvers brought it into the best firing position. Then she pressed the firing button. 6 rail cannon projectiles streaked across space at tremendous speed. The Vrak command ship tried to dodge, but it was too far away to see the projectiles coming in time. 4 of the 6 shots hit, punching through the alien ship's hull like bullets through paper. The command ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Immediately, the coordination of the Vrak attack began to fall apart. Without their leader, the individual ship commanders started making their own decisions. Some tried to continue the attack, others began to pull back, and a few seemed confused about what to do next. Jake saw his opportunity. All weapons, concentrate. Fire on the ships that are trying to retreat. Don't let them reform their attack. The Guardian's guns spoke again and again. Her ammunition was running low, but every shot was carefully aimed and most of them hit their targets. 3 more Vrak ships were destroyed or badly damaged as they tried to pull back to a safe distance. "Captain," Ben Carter called from engineering, "I'm reading massive power spikes from the alien ships. I think they're preparing for a big attack." Jake looked at his tactical display. The surviving Vrak ships were grouping together for what looked like a final assault. They had learned that they could not destroy the Guardian with hit-and-run tactics. Now they were going to try to overwhelm her with everything they had. "All hands, prepare for incoming fire. This is going to be the big one." The Vrak ships came at the Guardian from 3 different directions, firing everything they had. Energy beams, missiles, and projectile weapons all converged on the old human warship. The space around the Guardian lit up like a small sun as hundreds of weapons struck her hull. The bridge shook so hard that Jake was thrown from his chair. Lights went out and emergency power kicked in. Smoke filled the air and the smell of burning. Electronics was everywhere. "Damage report," Jake shouted over the noise. "Hull breaches on multiple decks," Tony Lopez reported. "We lost main power to the weapons systems. Life support is running on backup power." But even as he spoke, the backup systems were coming online. The Guardian's engineers had built redundancy into every critical system. When one power line was cut, another took its place. When one computer was destroyed, a backup unit activated automatically. "Ben, I need power to the guns." "Working on it, Captain. Give me 2 minutes." Jake looked at the tactical display through the smoke and flickering lights. The Vrak ships had used up most of their ammunition in that massive attack. Now they were vulnerable, and the Guardian was still alive to take advantage of it. "Lisa, as soon as we get power back, I want you to fire everything we have left." Power came back to the Guardian's weapons just as Admiral Sullivan's fleet arrived at the edge of the battle zone. Jake Morrison looked at his tactical display and saw the most beautiful sight of his life. 40 human warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel and racing toward the fight. "Admiral Sullivan to Guardian," came the voice over the communication system. "Jake, what's your status?" Jake looked around his ruined bridge. Half the consoles were dark or sparking with electrical fires. There were holes in the walls where alien weapons had punched through the armor. His crew was dirty and tired, but they were alive and still fighting. "Guardian is operational, Admiral. We've been keeping the aliens busy for you." Through the smoke and flickering lights, Jake could see the wreckage of the Vrak ships floating around his position. The Guardian had destroyed or damaged over 30 alien vessels in the past 4 hours. Bodies of enemy ships drifted in space like broken toys. "My God, Jake, what did you do out here?" "Our job, Admiral. We held the line." Admiral Sullivan's fleet moved into attack formation, but something strange was happening. The human ships were not just following standard battle tactics. They were fighting with a fury and determination that surprised everyone, including themselves. The crews of those ships had watched the Guardians battle from long range. They had seen one old warship stand alone against impossible odds and refuse to give up. They had seen her take punishment that would have destroyed any modern vessel and keep fighting anyway. Now they wanted to fight like the Guardian fought. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. Follow the Guardian's lead. Show these aliens what humans can do when we don't give up." The battle turned into something the Vrak had never experienced before. Human ships that should have retreated when damaged instead pressed their attacks. Captains who should have played it safe instead took dangerous risks to get closer to the enemy. The Vrak fleet, which had been confident of easy victory just hours before, found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to grow stronger as the battle continued. War Commander. Thek stood on the bridge of the World Breaker and watched his forces being torn apart by humans who fought like madmen. This was not how battles were supposed to go. The humans should have broken under the first assault. They should have run when they saw the size of his fleet. Instead, they were winning. War Commander, his tactical officer reported, "We have lost over half our ships. The humans are targeting our command vessels and disrupting our formations." Thex looked at the tactical display with growing horror. The human fleet was using tactics they had learned from watching the Guardian fight. They concentrated their fire on single targets instead of spreading it around. They used their heavier ships to absorb damage, while lighter vessels attacked from unexpected angles. And in the center of it all was the Guardian herself, still fighting after hours of continuous battle. "Sir," the tactical officer continued, "the Guardian is moving toward us." Thex looked at the display again. The ancient human warship was indeed moving, slowly but steadily, toward the World Breaker. Her hull was covered with scars and blast marks. Parts of her armor had been blown away completely, but her engines were still working and her guns were still firing. "That ship should have been destroyed hours ago," Thex said quietly. "Yes, sir, but it refuses to die." Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair and watched the World Breaker growing larger on his main screen. The alien flagship was huge, easily 3 times the size of the Guardian. Her weapons were more advanced and her shields were stronger. In any normal battle, the Guardian would have no chance against such a powerful enemy. But this was not a normal battle anymore. "Ben," Jake called to engineering, "I need everything you can give me. All power to forward shields and weapons." "Captain, if I give you everything, these old reactors might not survive. We could lose all power." "Do it anyway, Ben. We've come this far." Chief Engineer Ben Carter looked at his control panels and made a decision that went against 50 years of safety regulations. He pushed the Guardian's fusion reactors far beyond their design limits, channeling power to weapons and shields that should not have been possible with old technology. But the Guardian's designers had built her reactors with hidden reserves, expecting that someday she might need every bit of power she could produce. The old systems groaned and sparked, but they held together. "Lisa," Jake called to his weapons officer, "target the World Breaker's bridge. 1 shot, make it count." Lieutenant Lisa Gray had been fighting for hours, and she was exhausted. Her hands shook as she worked the targeting controls, trying to get a perfect lock on the alien flagship's command center. "Range is close, Captain. I can hit them." The Guardian's remaining main guns turned toward the World Breaker. The 2 ships were now close enough that Jake could see the alien weapon ports glowing with energy as they prepared to fire. Both ships fired at the same moment. The World Breaker's energy beams struck the Guardian's forward armor with tremendous force. The old battlecruiser shuddered and groaned as her hull plating was burned away layer by layer. Explosions erupted throughout the ship as systems overloaded and failed. But the Guardian's rail cannon projectiles struck the World Breaker's bridge at the same instant. The solid metal slugs punched through the alien ship's shields and armor like they were made of paper. The World Breaker's command center disappeared in a ball of fire and metal fragments. War Commander Thex had just enough time to realize that he had been beaten by a ship everyone had called obsolete before the Guardian's projectiles ended his life. The World Breaker began to drift, her command systems destroyed and her crew in panic. Other Vrak ships saw their flagship die and began to lose heart. The humans were not supposed to be able to do this. They were not supposed to be this strong. But Jake Morrison was not finished. Even as his ship took critical damage from the World Breaker's final attack, he ordered his helmsman to ram the alien flagship. "All hands, brace for impact," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. The Guardian, moving at her best possible speed, struck the World Breaker amidships. The old human warship's reinforced bow, built to ram enemy vessels in close combat, punched deep into the alien flagship's hull. Both ships exploded together in a flash of light that could be seen across the star system. When the light faded, there was nothing left but wreckage and the memories of heroes. The remaining wrack ships, seeing their commander dead and their flagship destroyed, began to retreat. They had come to conquer humanity, but instead they had learned that humans were more dangerous than anyone had believed. Admiral Sullivan watched the wreckage of the Guardian drifting in space and felt tears in her eyes. Jake Morrison and his crew had given their lives to save the colonies, and their sacrifice would never be forgotten. "All ships," she announced to her fleet, "stand down from battle stations. The enemy is retreating." The Battle of Kepler had been won, but the price had been high. Years later, children in human schools would learn about the Guardian and her crew. They would hear how one old warship had held the line against impossible odds, and how her example had inspired an entire fleet to fight harder than they ever thought possible. The Guardian was rebuilt as a monument and placed in orbit around Earth. Visitors could walk her decks and see where heroes had made their last stand. Her bridge was preserved exactly as it had been on that final day, when Captain Jake Morrison had chosen duty over safety and courage over fear. New warships were built using lessons learned from the Guardian's final battle. They had thicker armor and more redundant systems. They were built to last and built to fight no matter what the odds. And in the deepest parts of space, where old ships went to be forgotten, other vessels like the Guardian waited patiently for their chance to prove that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The universe had learned an important lesson. Never ignore a ship just because she's old. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you don't take seriously until it's too late.